Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DLD After Dark. Guys, it has been 46 days and 9 hours since my last live stream. And of course, we know that that's due to YouTube. I am still currently under one strike, but we're going to make the best of it. And I got a huge lineup of incredible guests. First off, happy Independence Day. Okay, first off. Secondly, our Independence Day episode today is with the Barefoot Defender. If you don't know Stephen Willeford, you must have heard the story somewhere. A lot of people in here are, also viewers of John Crump and Flying Rich and IV88 and all these other guys that have also been on a show with Stephen Willeford. So that's who we're getting into it with tonight, and it's going to be a great guest. Also, I don't know if you guys know this. Then Thursday, I have Front Towards the ATF coming on. And then Saturday, the 8th, I have Clint with Classic Firearms coming on. And then Tuesday, the 11th, I have Spectre Solutions coming on, a night vision guy who I got a bunch of great people coming on. It's going to be awesome. And thank you. Just thank you for being patient and still being there for me in these trying times. But let's go through and let's say what's up to all of our people that have already joined us. We already got 30 people in here. We just started. This is great. So, okay, Kurt24, of course, was first. Says, yes, Dark is back. Welcome back, everyone. Missed you all. Man, I missed you guys too so much. It was challenging. It was so difficult to not stream and not go live. Took a lot of discipline, not going to lie. But Kurt24, what's going on? But and how can I forget? Let's say hello to all the channel members. We got Kurt24, who's a channel member. We got, let's see, I wonder if all my channel members have expired. Let's see. Rusty Shackleford, what's up, brother? Another channel member. Andy Lipscomb, what's up, brother? Thank you for all you guys that have remained channel members under a destitute of content. Thank you. Destitute? Something like that. Appreciate you, Andy Lipscomb, another channel member. We got Kurt. Let's see, I'm just going through. Andy Lipscomb. Let's see. Saw a couple other in here. I don't want to miss anybody. Hey, Boom Thumb McBangy Hand. Good to see you, another channel member. Let's see. Man, are my eyes getting bad? I think I'm getting old. Let's see. Fantastic is another channel member. Oh, it's Luminous. What's up, Luminous? Good to see you, bro. When people change their names, totally throws me off. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. Also a channel member. Thank you. Andy Lipscomb, Kurt24. Fantastic. I guess it's just you guys, man. Thank you. I appreciate all you guys, man. And nobody has to be a channel member. Okay, I'm just sharing gratitude. And of course, we got, who else do we got? We got Jimmy Williams. Welcome. Pondo, what up? Ting Ting, great to see you. 717 Rider, Galoo, Zanti, Sandwich Chef. What's up, brother? John Pauly, Mark Tucka, good to see you, man. Missing my man DLD, miss you too. Flying Rich Firearms, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. We got Johnny Ba. Who else we got? Man Against the Masses. Our resident meme artist is still here. Love it. Gort, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Thank you for joining. He's part of the 28EDU family and ours as well. Detective John Kimball. Great to see you, man. Never thought I'd say that. JK, I love you. Goonbeam, what's up, brother? Look, I don't know if you guys know this. Goonbeam is like the best. Oh, the batteries are out of them. The best flashlight manufacturer in the world. So check them out. They're great. Taco Syndicate, what's up, man? Good to see you. Goonbeam, Taco Syndicate, Ting Ting. I just want to make sure. Fire Otter, what's up, brother? Too many choices. Ron Bear. Dang, all you guys, man. It's so great to see all you guys. Let's see. I'm just making sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get it started. Oh, dang. Okay, hold on. Was that... Hold on, who just gave away... Sorry, Mr. Guest, wait for 1 second. Looks like somebody's giving away channel memberships. So Luminous, BV Luminous, as we know him, or Fantastic, says, for real. And then, dang, Kurt24 just gifted 5 DLD After Dark channel memberships. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Hey, Loki, what's up, man? Happy Freedom Day, boners. As close to freedom as we'll ever taste. We got Mark Tucka, who's now a channel member. Hey, Big Fish, what's up, brother? Who else? So, okay, 717 Rider got one too. And who else got one? I can't see. Hey, T for Tejas, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Bugaloo got one. Nice, nice. I can't see who else got one. I won two, Rod. What's up, man? Good to see you. Thank you for joining. They remembered. That's awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm sipping on some Topo Chico tonight, which my Topo Chico is wearing a plate carrier because that's just how we get down. And this evening, I am joined by one of the just coolest people I've ever had the chance to chat with, and I look forward to chatting with him more, getting to know him. Some of you may know him as the Barefoot Defender, and there's a story behind that. So let's all welcome Mr. Stephen Willeford, the Barefoot Defender. Welcome.
Man, it's great to be on your show.
I appreciate that. It's great to have you on. I've got to be honest. I talked to John Crump a while back, and I was like, man, after seeing, you on the Iraq Veteran 88, IV 88 show, and coming on Crump's show, and I just knew that I had to get you on, just talk about your story, talk about you, and kind of learn more about you. So for the people that don't know who you are, you want to tell them kind of who you are, what you do, and where they can find you?
Well, you can find me on thebarefootdefender.com. I also have a YouTube channel I haven't done a lot with lately, but it's called Barefoot Defender. I work for Gun Owners of America. You can find them at gunowners.org. Please go and sign up for Gun Owners of America. And you have even more reason to do so now because we have got a injunction on the pistol brace ban for all of the GOA members.
Yep.
We were trying to get it for nationwide for everyone, but the judge gave it for all GOA members, and he didn't put a date on it. So even if you sign up now and you have a pistol brace, then you're covered. So that's, we're in the fight always to defend your rights.
And I think just to speak up on one thing, I don't think that either of us and anyone around us believes that we should have to join anything to exercise any of our natural rights. However, the ATF doesn't care, right? Like, take every avenue you can to protect yourself.
Well, with the GOA, we have even a T-shirt now that says "Save a Puppy, Abolish the ATF."
I heard about that. That's pretty epic.
We have a patch that says it also, because we don't believe that there should be a federal law enforcement agency directly to regulate one of our God-given rights.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what our Second Amendment is one of the Bill of Rights is God-given. It's not given to us by the government, but it's given to us by God. And the Second Amendment stops the government from infringing upon those rights.
Could you ever imagine? Hey, Shauna, and everyone else that's entering, by the way, great to see you guys. Could you ever imagine if there was a governmental organization created to stifle our speech into approve or disapprove speech or any of our other God-given rights?
Or our religion.
Yeah, our religion, our freedom of the press. I mean, well, I guess a lot of these publishers kind of already do that in some senses, but it's just crazy to believe that the ATF even exists as it is.
It should not exist.
Yep.
Go away. And we now have the House, which has the purse strings, and they need to defund the ATF. Say, okay, fine, we can't abolish the ATF. Your yearly salary, your yearly is $20.
Yeah.
Go do your job. We can defund them. And that's what should happen is we should defund them and stop sending them our tax money to infringe upon our rights.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'd like to start with the incident that occurred in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Um, kind of talk about your day as it started on that day.
Ooh, you froze up.
Oh, can you still see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. You froze up for a moment.
Sorry about that. And hey, Gerchop, Benchies Go Boom, and everybody, Mike McClure, and everyone out there. Zippy, good to see you. So kind of start, if you could, start just with your day as it started that day in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
On November 5th, 2017, it was a Sunday morning, and I chose to stay home from church. Normally, I attended a church that is about 40 miles away from where I lived at the time. And I chose not to go to church that morning because I worked as a maintenance plumber at a major metropolitan hospital in San Antonio.
Hmm.
And on Monday morning, I was going to start what's called an on call, which means I had to carry a pager with me home.
Yeah.
And for 24/7, I'd have to carry that pager. Millennials don't even know what a pager is, but they do still exist.
I didn't know that they were in use, but I do personally. I went through a few pagers before before I got my first cell phone. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, the confounded pager will get you where your cell phone can't.
Yeah, that's true.
So it would go off, and since we have day crew at the hospital, it would generally go off 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody was there to take care of plumbing emergencies. And people ask, what's a plumbing emergency? Well, um, University Hospital has 3 million square feet
Oof,
of hospital space in the main hospital,
wow.
and they have outpatient facilities and stuff that cover another 2 million square feet around San Antonio.
Jeez.
And if you have 3 inches of raw sewage running down a clean medical hallway facility, that's a medical emergency, plumbing emergency.
Yeah.
And so they would call me in the middle of the night to take care of anything like that.
Even just fresh water. If anyone has ever experienced, a water damage from fresh water, holy moly, it can be so destructive.
Well, with 5 million square feet that we were in charge of, a lot of things happened, and I knew I was going to get anywhere from 20 to 30 extra hours of work that week. So
Mhm,
I chose to stay home that day uh, because I wanted to get some rest and
mhm.
get a good start for my week. And I don't believe in coincidences. I think there was a purpose for that.
Yeah, I agree.
And my wife said, since you're not going into church today, I'm going to go work on Rachel's house. Rachel is the younger of my two daughters.
Mhm.
And she was married and living with us because we were building her house by ourselves. And we were on a time schedule because Rachel was pregnant with my very first grandbaby.
That's awesome.
And we were trying to get her and her husband in their house before the grandbaby was born.
Yeah.
And my wife is one of the most amazing people in this world because she just decides that she's going to learn how to do something and she does it.
Like building a house from the foundation.
Well, that day she learned how to tape and float walls,
Wow.
and she was taping and floating the walls that morning with my daughter and her husband.
Wow.
And I hung out in my bedroom. My older daughter was engaged to be married,
Mhm.
and so she moved back in the house with us because she didn't want to be stuck with another apartment contract when she got married with her husband. She wanted to be able to move in with him.
Yeah.
And we're an old fashioned family. So she moved back in with us. And if you're going to live with us for any length of time, rent free, you're going to do chores.
Yeah.
So
I
that
think
mo-
that's I think that's good though to have those, traditional values and hold your children to them. I think that's important. My parents did the same to me, you know.
That morning, she was up washing dishes, and I was hanging around in my bedroom and didn't have any shoes on. I'm checking my phone messages and going through, seeing what's going on. And my daughter came in and said, "Dad, doesn't that sound like gunfire?" I said, "Well," at first I thought your mind tries to make something normal out of something that's very abnormal.
Yeah.
And so the very first thing I said, "Sounds like somebody tapping at the window."
Mhm.
I went over to the window and I opened up the curtain and looked outside, and I didn't see anything. And she said, "Come into the kitchen, it's louder." And when I went into the kitchen, I told her it was gunfire. I ran to my safe, and my daughter ran outside, got in her car, and drove up the block to see what was going on. I cracked open the safe, and you know, I grabbed an AR-15, and it was a very AR-15 that I built myself.
Mhm.
And I built it with a light barrel. I built it with a Varmler trigger. I built it for competition because I used to shoot competition.
Mhm.
And I would shoot bowling pins and swing targets and move and shoot, not just stand and shoot.
Yeah, you were one of the sinners, right?
Yeah.
That more to that more on that story later.
So I grabbed an AR-15, the very competition rifle with a Neotech on it that I used to hit multiple targets while moving.
So
I
you
grabbed
shot a lot with that rifle.
I shot a lot with that rifle. And when that safe door opened, and if you have a choice of a pistol or a rifle and you know you're going into battle, always choose a rifle.
Were there other rifles to choose from, or was it
Oh,
just
yes.
muscle memory to
Oh,
grab one?
yes. I've been a gun collector and a firearms enthusiast. I used to teach self defense classes before
Mm,
this happened.
yeah,
So there was a multitude of rifles to choose from, and there still is, but
yeah,
there was no question which one I should grab because I was most familiar with that rifle. I built it for that purpose.
gotcha.
I grabbed a magazine and popped open a box of ammunition and grabbed a handful, stuck the rifle under my arm, and was throwing rounds in the magazine as I ran through for the door. I called my wife and I said, "Where are you at?" She said, "I'm at Rachel's house." I said, "Stay there." And she could hear the panic in my voice. And she said, "What's going on?" I said, "Someone is shooting up the Baptist church." She said, "Don't go over there." And I hung up the phone.
Hmm.
And as I ran for the door, my daughter came in and said, "Dad, there's a guy in black tactical gear shooting up the church." And
Hmm.
right away I said, "Have you called 911?" She said, "I did. They're aware of it." So
Oh,
what that told me at that moment is police were coming, and they were coming hard, and they were coming to a mass shooting.
yeah,
I'm running out the door with an AR-15 in my hands.
yeah.
What are they going to think?
If they catch you in the street, they may think you're you're the bad
They-
guy.
their first reaction is going to be he's so I decided in my head if I saw the police, I was going to toss the rifle. I was going to hit the ground with my hands out, face down, and start yelling, "He's still in there."
Yeah.
Uh, but my community couldn't wait. Sutherland Springs is a little bitty town, under 600 total population.
Wow.
And it's in the middle of a county that well, actually it's on the outside edge of a county. Uh, and there's just no telling how far away police are. There's no way. And that day, and we have a perfect record from when the first 911 call went in, and it was the Valero across the street from the church.
Mm.
There's a video of the lady that called 911 when he first started shooting. And she stayed on the phone with 911 until she heard the sirens and hung up the phone. It took the police 19 minutes to get there.
Whoa. That's
So
crazy.
when seconds count, police are minutes away.
Yeah, sometimes 20 minutes.
And so as I ran across the street barefoot, I didn't take time to put shoes on. And people say, really, you didn't take time to put your shoes on? My answer to that is, you're lucky I had pants on,
Yeah.
because I kept hearing the shots and I knew those shots were directed at somebody I cared about. I'm
Yeah,
fourth generation in Sutherland Springs.
because you had connection to this church, which we didn't touch on, by the way, but you had some connections to this church even as a young child. You went there, right?
My great grandfather used to pick me up when I was 5 years old, and I'd grab the bell rope. And then he'd just pull me up and down, and I'd hang on to the bell rope, and I would ring the bell to bring people to that church when I was a young man.
Wow.
Uh, it's my community.
Yeah.
It's my Mayberry, USA.
Yeah.
It, you know, with Aunt B and the whole bunch, I
Now,
knew everybody.
just out of curiosity, before your daughter ran back in and said, "Hey, there's a guy shooting at the church, shooting up the church," how did you make that distinction from hearing sounds that may be gunshots to hearing sounds that were definitely gunshots to I'm grabbing my rifle? Was it just the direction of the shots?
It was the direction of the shots. I could
Okay.
tell where the shots were coming from, and I knew that
Whatever it wasn't good.
it wasn't good. There's no reason for it.
Yeah.
And as I ran, and she busted in and said, "Dad, there's a guy shooting up the church. Did you call 911?" She said, "Yes, I did. They're aware of it." And as I ran out the door, she followed me out the door.
Mm,
And I turned around and looked at her, and I truly believe, I'm a Christian, and I believe the Holy Spirit was on me at that moment, because I was thinking more clearly than I've ever thought in my life. I turned and looked at her and said, "Go back in the house and load me another magazine. I just have a handful of ammunition."
mm.
I didn't believe that she could go back in the house and load a magazine
Yeah.
and come running out in a gunfight to hand me a magazine.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do is I wanted her to get to give her busy work, give
Yeah.
her
So,
something to do to get her in the house and out of the fight, because
yeah.
they already had way too many targets that I cared too much about. I didn't want her to be there also. She would have been a distraction,
Hmm.
and I didn't want her to see me failed. If I failed, she would have
Mm.
run to my side and he would have killed her next.
Do you think that you gave her a job to do, because if she wasn't otherwise occupied, she would have just trailed right behind you?
She tried to follow me.
Mm, wow.
She tried to follow me, and I didn't want her to follow me, because
Yeah.
I knew that there was a good chance of me dying.
Were you thinking about that in the moment, the
I
likelihood of you
was
not coming
thinking
back?
about everything in the moment.
Mm,
Uh, like I say, I was more aware of everything going on around me. And as I got about halfway from my front door to the house to the front door of the church is about 100 yards. And brother, let me tell you, if you see this much fat running down the road, something serious is going down.
I'm with you.
Uh, but I was about 50 yards away, and I yelled out. Why I would have yelled out, I can't tell you, other than the fact I truly believe that God called a demon out of that church.
Mm,
Inside the church, he had just shot Chris Workman. He shot Julie Workman through the breast. They were both under the pews. He shot Julie through the breast and then skipped one off the concrete and went through her leg.
mm,
And then he turned and shot Chris in the back. And it hit Chris in the center of the back, and it paralyzed him instantly from the waist down.
yeah,
And Chris said he, like what he was doing to everyone else, he would shoot them with his rifle,
mhm,
and then he would point blank range finish them off with his pistol.
mm,
And Chris said he was looking down the barrel of a Glock. And he said, I was ready to meet Jesus. He said, I knew there was no way out of it. I couldn't run. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, and I was looking down the barrel of his gun. And he said, I heard you yell. And when you yelled out, he said his face expression changed.
Mm.
And he dropped his rifle in the church and came out of the church shooting at me with a pistol.
That's so crazy. Just out of curiosity, do you remember what you yelled?
Oh, absolutely, I do. You ready for something deep, philosophical?
I'm ready.
I yelled, "Hey,
Hey,
hey!"
that's a really easy word to yell very loudly. But you think that it was God speaking through you.
I believe that what that demon heard was something totally different.
Mm,
I believe that God commands demons, and I don't. At that moment, why would he have stopped and not taken the extra 2 seconds to shoot Chris and his mother?
yeah.
Why would he have done that?
Now, kind of foreshadowing a bit, Chris lived likely because of that moment. And he is paralyzed, but he did live, right?
Chris, so Saturday, this coming Saturday, we're having Chris used to race a race car at a track, and he's been striving real hard to get a race car back up and running with hand controls.
Mm,
He's paralyzed from the waist down. And on Saturday, we're having GOA night at the races. And
wow.
Chris is now an announcer at the racetrack.
Really?
And we are going to go honor Chris at the racetrack on Saturday, as a matter of fact.
Mm, wow. That's
But
incredible.
getting back to the story,
Mhm.
as he came out of the church, and he had on class 3 body armor and a ballistic bulletproof helmet. And he came out of that church, and my worst nightmare, if you can imagine, was recognized that day.
Mhm.
He started shooting at me, and I ran behind a 3/4 ton Dodge pickup truck, came up over the hood. He hit the truck in front of me, shattered the windshield of the car behind me. He hit the house behind me. I hit him in the left chest. I hit him in the abdomen. Both of those stopped by the body armor. But at that moment, he ran for his vehicle that was sitting in the middle of the street with the driver's side door open and the engine running.
Mm.
And when he turned to his side, I put one high in his side between the plates, and I put one high in his legs. And he was able to get into the vehicle and put 2 rounds through the side window at me. And everything was slow motion for me. And I saw the glass open up a little hole and fall.
Wow.
And I put one where I perceived his head to be. I couldn't see it because of the reflection of the glass and the
Mhm.
sun. But I put it where I perceived his head to be. It split across underneath the rim of the helmet, all the way across his forehead.
Wow.
He accelerated, turned the corner. Now he wanted out.
Now,
And
really quickly, let me stop you. There's a couple interesting things. It's and any shooter's name. We've never mentioned any shooter's name, and we never will on this. But I think it's interesting. He had an escape planned. Most shooters don't. It shows how much of a coward and just a disgusting person he is. But he had an escape planned. But prior to backing up even a little bit more, sorry. You had actually been trained specifically working around body armor, and
I,
prior to that.
again, I do not believe in coincidences at all.
Mhm,
I used to shoot on a church pistol team.
mhm.
We had a team from our church, and we used to shoot a little local league shoot. Everybody goes out league bowling. We went out league shooting, and
That's awesome.
we had a team of 5, and you had to have a name for your team, and we called ourselves the Sinners. and everybody knew us as the church team. And it wasn't long before they also knew us as the winning team.
Mm.
We won a lot of local competitions. We were called the Sinners. And one of our sinners was a former Army Ranger
Mm-hmm.
and a San Antonio police officer. And he shot on our team. And in between competitions, Lance and I were good friends. And Lance and I would train. And he would train me the things that he knew.
Mm-hmm.
And he trained me to shoot around body armor for 3 weeks straight.
Wow.
And I'm just a plumber. Why would I have needed to know how to shoot around body armor?
Yeah.
Uh,
And this was just prior to the event, or was it
this
more
was
recent?
this was well prior to the event.
Okay. So it was
And,
something kind of ingrained in you.
and again, I had been teaching self-defense classes. I had been teaching a youth shooting league.
Yeah.
I had been in the shooting world most of my adult life.
Yeah. I
Uh,
love one thing I love though, the play on words with the sinners. Can you touch on that before we continue in the story?
so, if for those that don't know, the word sin in the Bible came from a archery term meaning missing the target. So we use the word sinners because we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has significance when it comes to shooting because it means missing the target.
Yeah.
And it gave us an opportunity to testify to people because why do you call yourselves the sinners? And it gave us an opportunity to explain what sinning is and that we all sin.
Yeah.
Christians, we're not sinless.
Yeah,
We're
there's such a negative connotation to that word. It's like it's a and I'm not saying it's a positive thing, right? But we all sin.
the Bible tells us we all sin,
Yeah.
and we're not any different than a sinner. The Christians aren't any different than anyone else as far as sin goes. We all have our sin,
Mm-hmm.
but we are forgiven. We are to strive to be better,
Yeah.
but we all fall short, and so to recognize that you're a sinner, and the Bible says you're a sinner.
Yeah.
So to recognize that and to tell people, okay, I am a sinner,
Yeah.
but through the blood of Jesus Christ, I am saved and redeemed and justified.
Yeah.
So we as a shooting team would compete together, and which is really interesting because our we started actively looking for sheriff's department that would do fundraisers. Like here in Wilson County, they have the Blue Santa program.
Mm-hmm.
Every year they have a competition shoot that's open to the public to compete against the sheriff's department in shooting. And we would actively seek these out because it was easy to win their trophies.
Mm.
People would say, "Oh, you think you're better than police officers at shooting?" Well, police officers aren't competitors. They aren't. And national average police officers in shootouts, national average, they fire 24 rounds in a shootout average with a
Eight.
17% hit ratio.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I heard 18, but I'm sure it changes,
Well,
annually.
the last stat that I heard was 17% hit ratio.
We'll
17,
give them.
give them 18. Give them
I
18.
I was gonna say,
That's still not good. That's not something you want to brag about.
yeah. Well, and I gotta say, you left your encounter, m obviously, it wasn't your first time behind a gun, right? With a
Uh,
100% hit ratio.
I fired
Um,
6 rounds. I hit him 6 out of 6 rounds.
so I
But
always thought the story was that you obviously we'll touch on the whole loaded mag thing, later, because I know people are like, "Why didn't you keep a bunch of loaded mags and run out with a plate carrier," and all that stuff, right? But I had always heard that you grabbed like 13 rounds loosely in your hand, but it was even
8
less than that.
rounds. It was 8 rounds.
8 rounds.
8
Wow.
rounds. And I fired 6 of the 8. I had 2 rounds left, 1 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber.
And
And I
to this day, your daughter is still loading that other magazine.
and I don't have I hate excuses, but I had been burglarized 5 years before this happened.
Mhm.
And the burglar got the one gun that I did not have in the safe. The one gun that was in my house that was loaded, ready to go, was not in my safe. And for 2 months straight, before they finally caught the burglar, I was afraid I was going to come home and have the same burglar in my house. And this time he would have had my gun.
Yeah.
So I thought I was being a responsible gun owner by unloading my guns and putting them away.
Sure.
And reality, if I would not have unloaded my guns and put them away, then I probably would have grabbed the pistol out of the safe and run across confronting a madman with multiple guns. He had multiple guns, multiple loaded magazines in his vehicle,
Covered in armor.
covered in armor. I probably would have been confronting him with a pistol.
Yeah.
But the fact that I made a habit of unloading everything and putting it away, when the door of that safe swung open, I had a choice of a pistol or a rifle, and I chose a rifle.
Yeah.
May have been that reason that made me choose a rifle, because I would have gone for a pistol and I may have been in trouble otherwise.
You clearly made the right decision, and being that you had trained prior to this what to do when encountering somebody with armor, you hit him twice in the plates, and you think he definitely felt those 2 hits, right?
And what the police officer told me to do was hit them in the armor. They'll feel it. It may
Mm.
not take them down, but they'll feel it. But he said, then wait your opportunity. One in the side, one in the hips, and one in the legs. He said the one in the side will kill him. He said the one in the hips is what we call an anchor shot, a girdle shot that will stop him. The one in the legs will slow him down. He said those are the 3 places that we teach to shoot for. And I hit him one in the side and I hit him one in the legs. I saw that officer a couple of months after that shooting was over, and he said, "How did you do that?" I said, "Well, that's what you trained me to do."
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, but police officers don't do that." I said, "But that's what you trained me to do."
Yeah.
And I've got to give him a lot of credit, because I did exactly what I was trained.
Well, I mean, kudos to you, man. That could have ended very differently. And all the other BS aside, I think you did grab the right firearm for the right job. And clearly, with your comfort with it, you built it. I think that was the best move. Now, at this point, you hit him twice in the armor. You did shoot him through his plates at what distance? You think
About 20 yards.
20 yards. You hit him through the plates, and you also hit him in the hip and the leg?
I hit him in the legs, not in the hip.
Okay. And then at that point, he ran for his car that was basically idling, waiting
Well,
for his escape,
he
right?
was
Okay.
he was in the door to his car after I hit him in the chest and in the abdomen. He was at the door to his car when he turned to his side, and he exposed his legs and his hip, or his legs and his side, so I could get between the plates. And he got in the vehicle. He put 2 more rounds through the side window. I busted one across his forehead.
Mm,
He accelerated, turned the corner, and he was trying to get away as fast as he could. By the time I got in the middle of the street, he was about 150 yards away and fleeing. I put one through the back windshield. It went through the driver's side seat. It hit him right at the left shoulder blade.
mm,
And he topped the hill and out of sight. And I'm standing in the middle of the street saying, it can't end this way. He's getting away.
yeah.
And I looked off to my left, and there was a pickup truck sitting at the stop sign. with a young man on the phone, and just sitting there. He had witnessed the whole thing. He sat there the whole time the shootout was going on between me and the murderer.
He saw the whole exchange
He
between you
saw
guys.
the exchange between me and the murderer, and
Wow.
I ran over and I tapped on the window and said, "That guy just shot up the Baptist church, and we got to stop him." Every sane person in this world would have just jammed on the gas and left me sitting there at the stop sign.
Yeah.
But this is Texas we're talking about. We're not known for sanity.
Yeah. Texas is known for doing what's right.
Yeah. Well, so the next thing I heard were the locks come open. I climbed up in the cab of a truck, and I can't even make this stuff up. Long, tall Texan, probably 6'2", 6'3", thin frame, white Western hat on, big feathers sticking out of the hat, a toothpick hanging out of his mouth, for goodness sakes, and a longhorn skull tattooed in the middle of his neck, and the horns run up underneath the ears.
That's awesome.
Johnny Langendorf, I didn't know him. He wasn't from Sutherland Springs. He was coming in town to date a girl that was from Sutherland Springs.
Wow.
And I climbed up in the cab of the truck, and he accelerated, turned the corner, and we were off chasing the wind. We didn't even see the shooter at that moment.
The fact that a complete and utter stranger took a stand and just unlocked his doors and was like, "You and your Barefoot AR-15 Holden self, get in. Let's go get," like that. That is just crazy to me, but I love it. Honestly, if it was me at that intersection, I would have done the same thing.
Kudos to Johnny.
Yeah.
I can't say good enough things about Johnny. He didn't have to do what he did. And so we took off, and he was on the phone with dispatch.
Hmm.
And he was talking to dispatch. He had called 911, and dispatch, when my daughter called them, they said, "We're aware of it," and hung up. But since Johnny had his eyes on everything, they stayed with Johnny.
Mm.
And so we busted across, 87, which is a main road that goes from San Antonio to the coast.
Hmm.
And this was in November. Reds are running down at the coast. October, November, reds are running at the coast. So Friday afternoon after work, everybody's headed to the coast.
Hmm.
Sunday morning, everybody's headed back home. And so we ran across 87, and Johnny didn't even look, and he just blasted across. We could have ended the chase right
Wow.
there. And he hit 87 and just blasted across and chased after the guy. And he was giving, every time we came over a crossroads, he'd tell them where we were. We didn't have sight of the guy anymore.
So you were just going with
We
your
were facing the direction that he was running, and that's it.
wow.
He was giving them a report, and something told me in the back of my head, "Check your magazine." I dropped my magazine on my AR. I'm looking at one round in the top of the magazine, one in the chamber. I got 2 rounds left.
Dang.
I had no idea how many I had fired at that point,
Hmm.
or how many I had left until I checked. And I reached up, stuck that magazine back in, and I looked at him and I said, "Tell them, hurry, hurry." I only
Yeah.
had 2 rounds left.
Mm.
And we are chasing the wind. And we came over the top of the hill and around a curve, and there he is. That's him, a gray Ford Escape. Back windshield was busted out.
Let me ask you this. Sorry, just really quickly. When you know, checked your rifle and you saw that you had one in the chamber, one in the magazine, did you even have enough time to process? Like, was it like an oh shit moment, or
Oh,
was it just like,
it was an oh crap moment.
yeah,
This is really serious,
yeah,
because he's still got on class 3 body armor,
hmm,
you know, and I've got 2 rounds left. This is, and right at that point when I told Johnny, I said, "Tell them, hurry, hurry." I have 2 rounds left. Johnny may well have just said, you know what? Okay, I'm out. I
Yeah.
was good now, but no, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, and so I told him, tell him, hurry, hurry. I have 2 rounds left, and he's still got on class 3 body armor. I never wanted to see red and blue lights more in my life.
Mm.
I wanted the police to be there. I wanted the police to take care of this. I was in over my head.
I bet you felt some relief on your feet though when you jumped in the truck.
Yeah. Yeah. So when people ask me, so seriously, you had a shootout with him and he left the church. Why did you chase him? He really pissed me off.
Mm.
And they said, well, remind me, don't ever piss you off. Because we were still in the chase, and we came around that curve and we saw him there, and I looked over there, and again I didn't even know his name, and I said, if you catch him, you're going to have to put him off the road. And the very first thing Johnny said to me, he looked at me, he said, yep, I already figured that.
Man, this guy was a saint.
And well, he's probably thinking I always wanted to try a pit maneuver.
Well, he was in a huge truck. By the way, Morbetta Prince, $10 super chat. Thank you. Says happy 4th, everyone. Amazing story and welcome back. Thank you. I appreciate that.
He was in a 3/4 ton Dodge also. And
That would have
the guy had a Ford Escape.
Yeah, that would have eaten up that little Escape.
And as we started running up to him, he pulled off into the ditch on the side of the road with a curve sign right in front of. I mean, he wasn't 2 foot from that curve sign.
Mm.
And I thought, man, he didn't even leave himself a way out. I thought that sign would have, I said, he didn't even leave himself a way out. And Johnny pulled up with his front bumper equal to the guy's rear bumper. Johnny was still on the road and he was out in the ditch.
Mm.
And I don't know, just I guess the sheepdog in me, I would have figured it was a sign from God. The front of that truck says Dodge Ram on it. I believe I would have put that Dodge right in that front seat.
Yeah.
And just swerved over and just pushed that Escape over. But he stopped on the pavement. And I'm thinking, okay, now here's where the rubber really meets the road, because I got 2 rounds left and it's real serious now. And I put the window down, I stuck the rifle out the window and opened the door with my left hand and pushed the door out. I'm going to step out
Mm-hmm.
and use the door as a shield and re-engage him through the window, through the open window. But before my foot hit the pavement, the murderer hit the sign and it flipped over the vehicle and onto the ground. And he went right back up on the road. And I barely got my foot back in and the door shut, and Johnny was after him again. Wow. And this time we chased him about 3/4 of a mile farther up the road. He went about 3/4 of the way around the curve that the sign had indicated. And then he swerved off to the left-hand side, through a fence and about 50 yards out in the field and stopped.
Did he seem like he was like his driving was his skills were diminished, or like he was kind of leaking out?
I was thinking that my shots had to have mattered, or he wouldn't have been driving the way he was. We shouldn't have caught him in the first place, because I had to run to Johnny's truck, bang on the window, and I was thinking he's hurt.
Yeah.
He's seriously hurt, because why would, and then when he ran through the fence 50 yards into the field, and I turned and I looked at Johnny. Johnny stopped on the road, and again he ran through the fence and out into the field about 50 yards. I told Johnny, I said, just stay down below the dash. He parked on the highway. Just stay down below the dash, out of bullets, and I got out, and for the second time that morning, I put my rifle over the hood of a 3/4 ton Dodge truck. There's something about a 6.2 liter V8 Hemi that was real comforting at that
Yeah.
moment. You know,
I
I'm
bet.
not a big Dodge fan, but Dodges do stop bullets really well. I figured that out.
Yeah.
But I put my rifle over the hood of the truck and I started yelling rude obscenities.
I couldn't picture you yelling rude obscenities.
Well, I was very mad.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
Johnny got out and did whatever millennial in this world would do.
He started recording.
He was live streaming on Facebook.
Oh my goodness. So there's video out there of that
Uh,
encounter live?
the police took his phone because of that and stuff whenever, but he was live streaming. Um,
Wow.
they estimate it between 5 and 7 minutes. I held that rifle over the hood of the truck between 5 and 7 minutes before the first police cruiser got there.
Mhm.
And I even at one point yelled out, "Where are the police?"
Yeah.
I wanted police there.
So that was just 5 to 7 minutes of you stationary at that point, holding the gun on him, not including the whole chase, the original exchange. So we're looking at, I mean, overall, what, 20 minutes for the police to arrive?
Yeah. So so I'm there holding the gun across, and the vehicle's kind of parked a little bit of an angle away from me,
Mhm.
and I've got that red dot of that EO tech trained on that driver's side window that was missing,
Mhm.
but it was parked away from me, so I couldn't see what was going on in the vehicle.
Okay.
But I'm pretty focused, and then like I say, 5 to 7 minutes later, I hear, "Driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up."
Mhm.
I turned to my left and I looked up the road, and there was a police officer standing behind his door to his cruiser with a pistol in his right hand, a microphone in left hand. He said it again. He said, "Driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up." And I looked at him, and look, if you're ever in this situation, if you're ever in something like this, uh, and the police show up, that police officer wants to go home to his family. He may not know who you are. Always comply. So I laid the rifle on the hood of Johnny's truck, and I raised my arms and I started walking to the back of Johnny's truck, hands up, fingers spread out.
Yeah.
And I started walking to the back of the truck, and he looked at me and he made eye contact, keyed the mic, and he said, "Not you." Gotcha.
Did he want you to continue holding him at gunpoint?
What's that?
Did he want you to continue holding the dirtbag at gunpoint, or did you
That,
not go
that,
back to the
that,
rifle?
that was the idea that I got. So I went back, picked the rifle up, and held
Oh,
it over
wow.
the hood and waited for more police officers to come. And this time they were going to their trunks and they were opening up their trunks and they were getting out their own AR-15s,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, I'm done now for sure. I'm out. And they
Yeah.
had set up a police line about 50 yards from me up the road in a blockade, and then up the other side, Comal County set up uh, a blockade on the other side. Well, I was right at a county line.
Mhm.
So I was in the middle. I was an island all to myself, and police lines on both sides. And now I pull the rifle off and I put it on the toolbox of Johnny's truck.
Mhm.
And now I'm trying to hang on to Johnny's bed and get my feet in the shade.
Yeah.
It's November 5th, and I know some of you guys from up north don't understand this. It was 90 degrees that day.
Mm.
And the adrenaline was gone, and my feet are starting to roast on the pavement.
Oh, man, I could only imagine.
And I'm trying to get my feet in the shade, and 30 minutes rolled by, and what is going on? I'm standing in the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
and what are they waiting for? And I thought, are they waiting for him to bleed out? I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
but I want to know what's going on. And so finally, I decided I'm going to run back to the police line. Johnny had already made his way back there.
Mm-hmm.
I started to run, and they came over and started yelling, "No, no, 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 wait there. We'll bring up a police cruiser. You can use it for cover to come back to us."
Okay.
So that's what they did. They drove a police cruiser up, and then I kind of squatted beside the cruiser and ran back to the police line. They set me on a guardrail. Uh, the curb kind of had a guardrail around it, and
Mm-hmm.
they set me on the edge of the guardrail. And now I'm shaking, just visually shaking,
Yeah.
because adrenaline's gone.
Yeah.
And adrenaline that leaves you. It just and I could see 200 yards up the road my wife. Uh, she had come to the fire department 200 yards up the road, set up a roadblock, and
Mm-hmm.
I could see my wife's car, and there was no one in this world I wanted to speak to more than my own wife.
Mm.
And a police officer walked by and said, I said, "Excuse me, can I call my wife?" He said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And he kept walking. I said, "No, can I use your phone?"
Mm.
He turned around, looked at me, he says, "You don't have a phone?" I said, "Brother, I don't have any shoes on."
Yeah.
The phone's the last thing I was worried about.
Yeah.
And so he hands me his phone, and I called my wife, and we had a moment. I said, "I think I killed a man." And 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 that's tough.
Yeah.
I He deserved it,
Yeah.
but it's still tough. And
Yeah.
she and her ultimate wisdom was helping me through that.
Yeah.
And she said, "You did what you had to do, and I'm proud of you."
Wow.
And I said, "My feet are hot." And I said, "Have you got any shoes?" And she said, "Well, I've got my Crocs, but they won't let me down there."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking my feet are going to stick out over them Crocs like that. But okay, I'll take whatever
I'll
I can
take
get, you
yeah, I'll
know?
take anything at this point.
Uh, and I asked the officer, I said, "Can I go back and get my wife's Crocs?" "No, you need to stay here."
Oh, they thought you were gonna
A-
run
And
away or something?
I said, "But my feet are hot." And he reaches over and he opens up the back door to his cruiser, and he said, "You can sit in the back of my cruiser." I'm like, "No, I'm good.
Oh, hell no.
I'm cool."
I'm only going in there if I absolutely have to.
Yeah, those doors don't open up.
Yeah.
Once they shut those doors and you're inside, they don't open up from the inside.
Very true.
And
Very
I,
true.
I, I honestly believed that I was going to jail that day. I'm, and I talk to people and I tell them, if you ever think you're going to have to pull your gun to defend yourself or someone else,
Mhm.
it better be worth going to jail for.
Yeah.
Consequences of you not doing so have to outweigh the consequences of you going to jail, because you're probably going to go to jail.
100%.
And you can figure all that out later if you're justified.
Yeah.
But the consequences of me not running across the street and engaging the shooter was more people were going to die.
People you personally knew and had connections to.
And if I had to go to jail for that, then that's a price that I was willing to pay.
Absolutely.
So
So you did not go to jail. You were not arrested. But
they
you
they and honestly, for your listening audience, for your audience,
Mhm.
whether it's right to bear or USCCA or US Law Shield, they'll tell you lawyer up and shut up.
Mhm.
and that would have probably been the best for me that day.
Mm-hmm.
But I got diarrhea of the mouth. They hopped me from police department. There were 5 law enforcement agencies at the scene that day.
Wow. Wow.
And they hopped me from police car to police car, and I gave my testimony, my statement, to 5 different law enforcement agencies.
Is it because it was right on different county lines and there were different
Well,
jurisdictions?
because it was such a big deal, they sent the cavalry from everywhere.
Oh, wow.
I talked to the Bexar County Sheriff later, and he had just gotten out of church with his wife and sat down for lunch, and he heard the call, and he jumped in his private car and ran to Wilson County
Mm.
because it was such a horrible thing. And
Wow.
they kept promising me, look, when just give us your statement
Mm-hmm.
and we'll let you go home. Just give us your statement. And finally, they said, when the Texas Rangers get here, the Texas Rangers will take charge of this scene. And so many other states don't have the Texas Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona has the Arizona Rangers, and they're a volunteer police force that really has no power.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Rangers are the ultimate in Texas. The Texas Rangers police the police. If you have a problem with a sheriff that you think he's breaking the law, the Texas Rangers investigate it and have the arrest authority for that.
Oh, wow.
So the Texas Rangers, you hear Walker, Texas Ranger. It is
Yeah.
truly, anytime you meet a Texas Rangers, these guys are always the ones with the crease in the jeans and the perfect looking shirts and the white Western hats and the 1911s hanging on their hips with the Texas Ranger star, and they're absolutely ultimate in law enforcement. And they said, when Texas Rangers get here, they'll take your statement and you can go home.
Wow.
And the Texas Rangers, Terry Snyder, I know him well now. I know him really well now. I know him better than I ever wished to.
Mm.
But he's a great guy. He's the Texas Ranger in charge of my county. And Terry Snyder got there, and I sat in his SUV, and I gave him my statement.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Mr. Willeford, you can go home now.
Wow.
And then he said something that reminded me of an old Western. He said, but don't plan on leaving town anytime soon. I was like,
Yeah.
ah.
Oh, and you had a hunting trip planned
I
or
had a
something.
hunting trip coming up, and I thought, man, I'm going to miss my hunting trip. But I started walking that 200 yards back to the fire trucks where my wife was parked, back to the roadblock.
How did she know where to go? Or did she just take a lucky guess too?
Well, one of the neighbors heard on the police scanner that there was a accident down the road. She didn't know that I wasn't involved in the accident or anything. She just knew that I had a shootout with a guy and chased him down the road.
Wow.
And she was afraid that I was in the accident.
Mm.
And so I'm making that lonely 200-yard walk back to her car. And a lady called out, said, Mr. Willeford, I need to speak with you for a moment. And I turned around and I looked, and a very pleasant looking lady about my age came running up behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Her mascara was all messed up. She had been crying really hard. She said, I had friends in that church. And I said, how bad was it? Or how bad is it?
Mm-hmm.
She said, it's really bad. And she pulled out a card. She said, but if I can do anything to help you, here's my card. I'm the DA for Wilson County.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, I want that card.
Yeah.
That's my get out of free get out of jail free card.
Really?
And
Man, that's who would be prosecuting you if
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. If I can do anything for you, here's my card.
Wow.
And I made that lonely walk back to the car. I found out later that he had shot himself. I believe he's coughing up his own blood
Mhm.
because I hit him between the plates in the side.
In the, like, rib area?
But yeah, high and right under the arm.
Mm.
And they said he took the pistol up underneath the helmet and pulled the trigger, and I'm okay with that.
I think that's, the best ending that we could ask for aside from him bleeding to death.
I want to say, because this is my new book,
Mhm.
it's called A Town Called Sutherland Springs, and you can find it on Amazon.
Okay, let me put you full screen here.
Because, and this is important because, the subtitle is Faith and Heroism Through Tragedy. And I
Mm.
tell people that the heroism isn't necessarily my own that I'm talking about. It's people like Gunny Macias that was in the church. Gunny Macias is a retired Marine. And I said, "Oh, you were a Marine?" And Gunny says, "No, once a Marine, always a Marine." Gunny Macias was in the church. He got shot 5 times in the abdomen.
Mm.
He couldn't even stand. And when the shooter left, I told you about Julie Workman earlier. She had been
Yeah.
shot through the breast and one skipped off through her legs,
Mhm.
through her leg. And Julie was an emergency room nurse. And when the shooter left, Julie stood up and saw a little girl that had been just dancing around her legs, singing praises to God, shot in the head.
Oh my god.
And Julie screamed. And Gunny yelled out in his Marine voice, barked out, "Julie, wake up. None of this took God by surprise. You were made for this moment. We need you."
Wow.
And then he yelled out in a loud, booming voice, "Hallelujah, hallelujah, even in this, praise God." And Julie started tying tourniquets and saving lives.
Wow.
Um, and then a little girl said, "Gunny, I'm scared." And Gunny pulled her in and started singing "Jesus Loves Me" with a little girl.
Wow.
Gunny Macias held everybody together. Julie Workman, bleeding from her own wounds, tied tourniquets and saved lives. Zach Poston, 17-year-old senior in high school. When the murderer turned towards Zach, he pushed another little girl underneath, the same one that said, "Gunny, I'm scared." He pushed her under the pew with his foot.
Mm.
And for his heroic actions, he got shot 7 times.
Wow.
And then Zach's grandmother crawled on top of Zach and paid with her own life and saved Zach's.
So Zach ended up living.
He walked across the stage. This was in November, and he walked across the stage and graduated with his class. Zach was signed up on delayed entry program to be a Marine himself. And now
Mm.
he's got pins and screws and plates in him, holding him together, and the Marines don't want him anymore. I think he's combat tested.
Yeah, really. And Gunny survived as well?
Gunny survived as well.
Wow.
Um, and nobody seems to even know Gunny's first name. They just call him Gunny. As a matter of fact, when the pastor of the church went to visit Gunny in the hospital, he was in SAMSI, which is the largest military hospital in the world, and it's in
Mhm.
San Antonio, Texas. And the pastor went and said, "Ma'am, I need to know what room Gunny Macias is in." And she said, "What's his name?" The pastor says, "I don't know. It's Gunny." And she said, "Sir, do you know how many Gunnies are in this hospital?"
Yeah. Wow.
But Hank Farnett was the first police officer that was on the scene at Sutherland Springs.
Hmm.
Hank was buying trauma kits for years before this and keeping them in his squad car out of his own pocket.
Oh, wow.
And some of the other police officers saying, "Why are you spending so much money on trauma kits? Are you thinking something's going to happen?" And Zach and Hank would tell him, "You never know what's going to happen."
Yeah.
And that day he ran into the church. He was the first officer on the scene, and he ran into the church yelling out, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands." He said he was yelling that more to find out who was alive enough to raise a hand
Yeah.
so he could give them help and assistance, because so many were dead around him.
Mm.
And he broke out before the first EMS got there, before the first EMT got in there. He broke out the tourniquets and the trauma kits out of his own car, and he tied 4 tourniquets himself before the EMS got there. He distributed more tourniquets out for Julie and some of the others to help tie tourniquets and save lives within the church. And he's an absolute warrior. And then at the
Wow.
point when all the EMTs got there and converged on the church, and they said, "There's a crash scene down the road," he jumped in his police cruiser and came back down to where I was.
Wow.
But he went from warrior to tying tourniquets and saving lives in the church, and then back to the warrior mode again when he ran down the street to join me and the other officers at the crash scene.
You know, I had never heard, excuse me, I had never heard the stories that you just shared about Hank, about Gunny, about, was it Julie? Is that,
Sure.
yeah? I never heard those stories, and I appreciate you sharing that, because so much of the conversation of what happened with Sutherland Springs is focused around you, and what you did is remarkable, and I believe it's heroic, and I think it should be, it needs to be discussed. So anybody that considers themselves to be a defender, right? A lot of times the gun is confused as a sword or a shield. Truly, I think it's a shield from evil, right? It's for our preservation of life. And we need to honor what you did, but also I've never heard any of those stories, so I appreciate you sharing that.
The very hospital that I worked for, University Hospital in San Antonio, Texas.
Hmm.
University Hospital is rated number 8 in the nation for trauma and number 2 in the state of Texas for trauma.
Wow.
That's pretty high ranking.
Yeah.
All the children went to University Hospital. All the adults went to SAMSI. And that day, University Hospital on a Sunday was having a mass shooter drill.
Hmm.
And they had all the doctors and nurses on staff that day
Wow.
complaining, "Why are we here when we could be worshiping at church with our families? Why are we here on a Sunday? Why
Wow.
did you have this drill on a Sunday?" And while they were complaining, the real call went out. And since they were all hands on deck, they were able to get all 20 ORs up and running before the first victim showed up.
Wow.
And University Hospital, not one shooting victim showed up and died. Every one of them that showed up lived over it.
Really?
Zach Poston shot 7 times. Rylan Ward, 5 years old, got shot 5 times.
Oh my God.
Zoe, a 7-year-old little girl, got shot 3 times. They all survived.
Wow.
And it was such an honor to work for University Hospital at the time. Why
Yeah.
were they there at that moment?
Like you said, there are no coincidences, right?
No coincidences.
That there's always a reason, you know. And I think aside from so many other things we've touched on, it being calm even in the face of terror, being absolutely just utterly mortified, terrified, but still kind of conquering that fear and just being calm is a superpower. And I kind of feel like that's at least that, in addition to, having the protection of your creator on your side. I really think that saved you and a lot of other people that were in the church.
You and me and everybody else listening today are going to die someday.
Yeah.
And it's not about how we die, it's how we live. And if you have the confidence, as I do, of where I'm going when I die, you can live more boldly.
Mm. So, what are some things that you could share with the viewers out there? Most, I would say, almost everyone that's part of, a viewer of my channel, most of them are in the gun world. They carry, they train, and I think that's something that we talk about on a fairly regular basis. What are some things that you could tell people? I've heard you talk about um, mental preparation, thinking through situations, which I think is excellent. But what are some things you could recommend?
Well, I can recommend on top of everything else is look into your spiritual aspect. Know where you're going when you leave this world. Um, what I
Mm,
can tell you as far as mental preparation and training is paramount. You
yeah,
know, I don't think you should have to train to carry, but if you ever
agreed.
think that you would be the kind of person that would confront a shooter, you better have better training than he does. Uh,
Yeah.
and as far as the mental preparation, I can tell you this because I thought long and hard. I have a police officer friend. He I was friends with his father when his father was alive.
Hmm.
I knew Kevin when he was 14 years old, and he's a police chief now. And after Uvalde happened, Kevin called me up and he said, I've always said that I would do what you did. He said, but Uvalde opened a wound in law enforcement. He said, I would like to think that I would react like you did, but I don't know that I would after hearing what those officers at Uvalde did. And I said, I can help you with that, Kevin. And and this is important. I said, because today, before anything happens, I need you to think of what your tomorrow looks like. If you're able to be in that position to run into a gunfight and to save lives, what you should consider before that happens is what's your tomorrow going to look like? Because honestly, there's no guarantees in life. Your tomorrow may be six uniformed officers with white gloves carrying you and putting you over a hole in the ground and giving you a 21 gun salute with shotguns. That may be your tomorrow if you put yourself out there, honestly.
Hmm.
I said, but did you deserve that honor? If that happens, did you deserve that honor? The next choice might be that you look at yourself in the mirror and you shave your face in the mirror, looking at the man in the mirror and say, you coward, you did nothing while people were dying.
Mm,
Personally, I can't live with that.
yeah.
I don't want to live with that. And then your tomorrow may look like my today, where people in your community know who you are, and your children know who you are. Your children know what your community meant to you. Even if you died, you leave that legacy for your children and your grandchildren.
Yeah.
My grandchildren one day will be aware of what happened and know that their grandfather saw his community worth dying for. Especially being a police officer, when you put your uniform on in the morning, you put the vest on, you're telling the rest of the world there's something in this life that's still worth dying for. Because if
Yeah.
there's nothing worth dying for, then honestly, there's nothing worth living for.
Yeah. Very good point. Wow. I think I heard you on another show, and I love that advice, by the way. And I heard you on another show. I can't recall which one exactly, but you know, psychologically taking yourself through situations, as much as you can physically train, physically go to the range, get more time behind your gun, whatever people's individual choices to carry. It's up to you. But having the it's okay. It sounds like the kiddos are home.
My grandbabies are home.
Yeah.
They'll, they'll get them in the next room as soon as they can.
No, that's okay. It's all about family, so it's all good. But get time behind your gun. Get as much time, shooting your carry gun and your go-to rifle as possible. But one thing you said that really stuck with me in another on another show was psychologically preparing yourself when you hear of these instances or these shootings or whatever happens. Run yourself through, like, psychologically, what would you at least intend to do, right? We all like to think that we would be the one to rise to the occasion, right? But like we've seen all over the place, sometimes adrenaline dumps affect people differently. And it's, obviously there's when fear hits, it's fight or flight and freeze. And people, I've done all three of the above in different instances. So psychologically running yourself through different scenarios of what will I do and what will I commit to do in these types of situations, I think is powerful, because if, God forbid, something like that does occur, then you've already psychologically planned what you're going to do. And then your time behind your tool is already trained into you. Does that make sense?
Well, so I was actually because I use this for a example all the time. I talk about taekwondo or karate, you know,
Hmm.
and I was given a black belt after this was over by a grandmaster, and he said, first off, martial arts is the definition is art of war, is what martial arts is defined as. And he
Hmm.
said, so even with a gun, that could be a martial art. And he said, you deserve a black belt. And he gave me a black belt. But I tell
Wow.
people all the time that because I use karate or martial arts as a example,
Hmm.
because when you start with your very first belt and then you work up the ladder to be a black belt and then different degrees of black belt.
Hmm.
You learn certain moves
Hmm.
and you demonstrate those moves on a floor without anyone else that you're fighting, but you're demonstrating that you can do these moves. And what you're doing is you're training your brain, you're training your subconscious to do. Because if I throw a punch at you and you have to think, oh, he threw a right hook at me, I need to swat it away. Then you're too late. It's already connected.
Yeah.
So you're training your subconscious to do what your subconscious does so you can react to that immediately and not have to think about it.
Mm.
And so when you're training at the range, if you're training standing in one spot, shooting at flat targets, you're training marksmanship. And although marksmanship is great, it's not going to help you in a gunfight.
Yeah.
You should be training moving, and if you don't train your brain to do anything when the stress is on, that's exactly what you'll do, what you trained your brain to do, and that's nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
So people would ask me when I would do a defensive course before this ever happened, how do you know that you would do the right thing. And I would use the martial arts thing and say, well, I'm training. I can't guarantee you I would do the right thing, but I'm much more likely to do it
Yeah.
if I train my brain what to do. I'm much more likely for it to become nature for me to do it.
Yeah. Very good point. And actually, this is just kind of proof as to what we're talking about and how important it is to discuss the heroes. Wild Weasel just sent a super chat. Thank you, Wild Weasel. I appreciate you. He says, Steven, I heard you tell this story a while back, and I was suffering a crisis of faith. You and Gunny's story in particular pointed me to Christ. Bless you.
Well, thank you. And all I can say is this isn't my story, it's God's story. It truly is.
Hmm.
Because I can look at my past and I know God was training me for a purpose. Just like David and Goliath. Did you know that they've gone to third world countries nowadays, and they've gone to slingers? They call them slingers, and uh, they're they watch over flocks and stuff,
Hmm.
and they can hit a running wolf running through their flock with a rock from a slingshot, and they
Wow.
photograph those rocks coming out of the slingshot. Anybody want to take a guess how fast those rocks are flying out of a slingshot?
300 feet per second.
900 feet per second.
What? That's almost supersonic.
45 ACP is about an 820 foot per second. They're
Yeah.
in rocks at 900 foot per second, accurate enough to hit a wolf running through their sheep.
That's crazy.
So when David was a shepherd,
Mhm.
what did he tell Saul when he saw Goliath? He told Saul, I've killed a bear and I've killed a lion. I'll bring you this Philistine's head on a platter.
Mm. Wow. That's crazy to think that they could. I mean, look, I don't wanna be hit by anything from a rock to 22 short to to 50 BMG, but 900 feet per second out of a slingshot, that is
They're doing
crazy.
900 feet per second out of a slingshot, and that's probably a rock much bigger than a 45 ACP slug.
Yeah.
Hit Goliath in the center between the eyes. The Bible said that rock sunk in.
Mm. Wow.
So God trained David specifically for Goliath.
Yeah.
And Saul said, take my armor. And David said, I am untested with it.
Mm.
David walked out there with no armor and faced Goliath. And I think God has a sense of humor, a way of doing things where I ran out with no shoes on and no
Yeah.
armor and
Yeah.
faced my Goliath.
Yeah. I believe that's
And again, I think this is God's story because he trained me to shoot around that armor
mm.
before that happened.
So what inspired you to, and I do want to talk about your books more. What inspired you to write the book? Is it to tell the stories of the other heroes that day, or what was it?
It is to tell the stories. It's to tell people. So November 5th did not define Sutherland Springs. Instead, it shined a spotlight on Sutherland Springs for the rest of the world to know about my community.
Mm.
And some of these stories in the book are about my life, my great grandfather, even all the way back to him in this community, and what the community meant, and the sense of community that my great grandfather and my father instilled within me, and those
Mhm.
stories. And also it gets into everyone that was lost that day. um, and I would say they're not lost. uh, we will meet them again someday, but the ones that died that day, it's what their family members wanted the rest of the world to know about their loved one that died
Mm,
at the church. We
mm,
actually interviewed them personally, and we wrote the story, and then we took it back to them and said, proofread it, and made any changes that they wanted made before we printed the stories and printed the book.
mm.
Uh, it's stories of heroism from uh, people like Gunny and Julie and Hank and Zach, and
Yeah.
uh, stories about all of them.
Can you hold up the book again? Remind me, what's the title of it?
It's called A Town Called Sutherland Springs,
Faith and Heroism Through Tragedy.
and co-authored by Rachel Howe. In case anybody's curious, they
Mhm.
wanted to give me a ghostwriter because I'm a plumber. I'm not a real writer. But I sent my daughter to Texas A&M
Mm,
to be a creative writer, and so she graduated. She takes after her mother. She's got 4.0 GPA. Uh,
nice.
you know, takes after her mother. And I told them I couldn't do it with a ghostwriter. I had to use my daughter. And they said, "Well, is she any good?" I said, "Look, I'm a father. I think she's great." And they got us on a. They said, "Well, send us a couple of chapters. We'll tell you whether she's any good or not."
Mhm.
And we sent them a few chapters, and they said, "Well, you're wrong. She's not great. She's magnificent."
That's awesome.
So they said sometimes we have people that can write really well but don't have a story. They said sometimes we have people that have a really good story but don't write really well.
Yeah.
Said this is totally different because we have someone that writes really well and has an excellent story to go with it.
Well,
So
I think it's great that, you're focusing on, you know, all of what happened, and where can people, find the book?
you can go to Amazon and find it at Amazon. Uh,
Okay.
Town called Sutherland Springs. You can go
Mhm.
to Gun Owners of America at gunowners.org,
Mhm.
because they have bought several of my copies, and they're selling them on Gun Owners website.
Awesome.
And if come to one of my events, I'm going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin next week.
Nice.
This week.
So let me ask you this, and I so appreciate you taking time out of your Independence Day to sit with us. Before we wrap it all up, let me ask you this. I don't know if I've heard anyone ask you if looking back on it, of course, with 2020 vision, right? Looking back on it, if there was one thing you could have done differently, what do you think you would change?
I would have had a magazine loaded. I would have had several magazines loaded.
Okay, that's
I
fair.
wouldn't have had my AR-15 in the safe.
Mm,
I was asked to testify to the United States Senate. I was asked to testify by Ted Cruz
mm-hmm,
on a Safe Storage Act, and I talk about that being because before I spoke to the United States Senate,
mm-hmm.
I timed myself several times getting into my safe, grabbing a magazine, sticking rounds in it, and heading for the door.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 91 seconds. The fastest was
Wow.
91 seconds. And I tell people that 91 seconds is 91 seconds I'll regret for the rest of my life.
Mm,
I told Chris Workman, I said, if I had been there 15 seconds earlier, you'd be walking. I said, someday you would have walked your daughter down the aisle and gave her away.
oh,
I would have been there 15 seconds earlier. You wouldn't be confined to a wheelchair.
wow.
Chris helped me work my mind around it. He said, "You were there during God's time and not your own."
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, and I agree with the sentiment of, no one has the right to restrict people's. Everyone has different situations, and their circumstances depict how they should keep their firearms. Right? Every
They,
home is different.
everybody has to take in account the kids in their house, the people in their house. If
Hmm.
you have someone suicidal in your house, you definitely need to keep your firearm away from someone like that.
Of course.
You need to keep your firearm away from children or that might not understand. I think you ought to train your children.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
my kids, all three of my kids, both my daughters and my son, were distinguished experts with a pistol by the time they were 8 years old.
Mm, that's
Uh,
important. That's really important.
so, accidental shootings every year, we have more accidental drownings in swimming pools, more
Yeah.
accidental deaths on bicycles than we
Yeah.
do firearms. But what do we do to prevent that? We teach people, kids, young kids,
Hmm.
pool safety. We teach them bicycle safety. We should be teaching them firearm safety also.
Exactly. Just like I have my 6-year-old in swimming lessons, pretty serious swimming lessons. I teach her at this stage, what I can about firearms and firearm safety. She can recite, all the core, firearm rules. She knows. I told her, and this was initially when she started to become curious. Envision that there is a laser coming out of the muzzle of the firearm, and anything that you swipe that muzzle past, it could potentially just completely, destroy it, anything you pointed at. And I think that kinda clicked in her mind of like, okay, because
When
they don't appreciate it, like, they don't know the power at that age.
when my daughter was 5 years old,
Mhm,
I had come back from a hunting trip and I had shot a deer and
mhm.
I neck shot the deer and I shot it with a 30-06,
Mm,
180 grain 30-06.
so
And
it was a guillotine.
well, so I shot this deer and I met my wife in town, on my way back from the hunting trip. And my daughter was there and I dropped the tailgate to my truck and my daughter could see over she had to look up, see over the tailgate of the truck. Said, "Wow, that's a beautiful deer, Daddy." And I took and I grabbed the ear of that deer and I pulled its head up and looked at her through the hole in the neck and I waved at her.
Oh, wow.
She's like, "Whoa." And I said, "Baby girl, that's what a gun does.
Yeah,
A gun doesn't have a conscience, it doesn't have a free will. Whatever you point that gun at and you pull the trigger, that's what this gun does.
yeah,
This gun will do that to you, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad.
yeah.
That's what a gun does.
That is
It needs
such
to
an
be
important lesson.
respected.
Yeah, respect. Is such an important lesson, especially at that age, because it's so hard for them to understand the true potential of damage that this. I mean, no rewind button, no pause button, like you said, no conscious, no ability to select, right? It is an inanimate tool, and it will do the same job. Of
And
course, bullets do weird things too, but
honestly, right along with that, we talked a lot about training, and I
mhm,
tell people you're responsible for every time you pull the trigger on that gun.
yeah,
That bullet has your name on it. What if you miss the bad guy and you
mhm,
hit somebody else that's totally innocent
yeah,
on you?
yeah,
You may have pulled the trigger with just as good a intent as possible, but can you live with the result if you're not good with your gun?
yeah,
John Lott, he wrote the foreword to my book, by the way.
mm,
Uh, and people in shooting world, if you don't know who John Lott is, go look at him and find out. More guns, less crime.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's up to 11 books now. Is Dr. John Lott.
Wow.
John Lott said, and this is important because he took all the numbers from the FBI and he tallied all those numbers up. And the FBI said from 2014 to 2021, less than 4% of the time in mass shootings are stopped by a non-law enforcement civilian.
Yeah.
Well, John Lott, he's a numbers guy and he's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks probably different than most people. So what he did is he took their own numbers and they were even skewed, but he took them even like that because like Jack Wilson, they said he was law enforcement. So no, he wasn't. But okay, he was security for the church. He wasn't law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So they even skewed those numbers. But John took the numbers that they had and he took the 93% of all mass shootings that happened in gun-free zones out of that. Because what? They're in gun-free zones. You're not going to be able to stop a mass shooter if you're a non-law enforcement and you're towing the law.
Yeah.
So they took all the gun-free zones out. What he had left was 204 mass shootings that happened from 2014 to 2021 that
Mm-hmm.
weren't in gun-free zones. And out of those 204, 104 of them were stopped by non-law enforcement
Wow.
civilians.
More
And
than
out
half.
of that 104, not one innocent bystander was hit.
Wow. You can't say
And
that about police.
law enforcement can't even claim that.
That's impressive. I just kind of being in the training world a little bit, being around the training world. I don't, personally train. I mean, on the side, unofficially, I'll help. I've helped youth shooters and female shooters and just other guys too, but nothing official. Um, just being in that world, when you do run into law enforcement that are in these training classes. I just took another basic rifle carbine course because, in my opinion, there is no training outside of basic. It's just elevated basic, elevated forms of basic things that it, these law enforcement folks are like, why are you do more training than we do? Well, why do you train so much? And I'm like, look at our world, look at where we are, like, if we're not preparing ourselves for, to be the shield, right, to be the protectors, then I couldn't live with myself if oh, I'm sorry, Rich, I dropped your thing on accident. I would not be able to live with myself if I didn't take a stand for myself, my family, my community, or anyone else that, I care about, so that's why I train.
I had a liberal lady one time confront me, and she said, the NRA says the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Mhm.
She said, let me tell you what happened that day in Sutherland Springs. She's going to tell me what happened in Sutherland Springs.
That's nice of her.
She said a bad guy with a gun came in, started murdering people in a church, and another bad guy ran across the street and shot him. I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I said, I really, really hope you're never involved in a mass shooting.
Mhm.
I said, but if you are, find someone like myself to stand behind because I don't care about your political view. I don't
Yep.
care about your race. I don't care about your gender or your sexual preference or anything else.
Yep.
I will stand between you and the evil that is trying to murder you.
Yep.
And she said, I would never risk my life for you. And I said, I don't want you to. Just don't get in my way.
Yeah. And I'd be willing to bet that she didn't know anyone in that church. I'd be willing to bet that she had nobody that she cared about in there. And if she ever found herself, which I don't wish this upon her or anyone for that matter, and I know you don't, if she ever did end up in that situation, she would be praying to God for anyone to come in and stop that evil. Which, by the way, Flying Rich sent in a $5 super chat. He says, "Tell Steven Flying Rich said hello." He's from John
I
Grump's show. Yeah, but I can't believe, well, and there are other situations like you mentioned, the that Walmart shooter, that there were 8 people carrying concealed handgun in, that Walmart shooting, and, no one stood up and
No one confronted the shooter, but those 8 people that had their permit
mhm.
got their families out safe, and that's honorable.
That's fair, that's fair.
But I will tell you that the best way for me to protect my family if that's happening is I'll confront the shooter. I'll
Mhm.
tell my family, hit the door, run, don't look back, don't think about me or anything else. Just get out, get safe. I'll confront the shooter because when I'm keeping him busy, they have more time to leave.
Yep.
And I may protect your family in the same moment.
And it depends, right? It may not be a circumstance because every situation is different. If there's a circumstance and it is not, I mean, look, I don't know. If something were to occur, maybe the best solution is to just grab yourself and your family and get out and run. For me personally, I would like to think that I would um confront the shooter, because that type of evil would need to be neutralized for me to be able to leave with my family and not feel that me and other people will be targeted in the
Well,
parking lot or outside of, you know?
I would like to have never said this, but I can tell you I would confront the shooter, and you'll believe me because I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you know, I was much like you saying I would like to think I would,
Mhm.
uh, but now I know I would
Yeah.
because I did.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a story that needs to be honored and shared more. And I think it's great that you're, sharing the story about the heroes, the unspoken heroes inside the church that were tying tourniquets and saving lives. And I think that's awesome. So good for you for doing that.
Well, thank you.
Now,
Please
personal, oh, sorry, go
go
ahead.
get the book, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, go check out the book. Whether you go through GOA or Amazon, make sure we support Stephen and what he's doing. And just out of curiosity, do you carry a handgun daily as well?
Oh, absolutely.
What's your typical everyday carry?
I've got a was so for 20 odd years I carried a Kimber Ultra CDP
Okay,
um, from the Kimber Custom Shop for 20 plus years. Uh,
7 rounds of 45 ACP.
7 rounds of 45 ACP. And I still carry it as, I guess, my dress gun.
Okay,
I call it. It's a 3-inch barreled 1911. Um, actually, 7 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber.
oh,
Um,
that's right, that's right. Yeah.
but now more than anything, I carry a Hellcat,
Mhm.
Springfield Armory Hellcat.
Does it work?
Okay,
Just
perfectly.
I'm giving Springfield some, dishing some trash, but I'm joking. It's a good gun. It's a good gun.
So I used to compete with my 1911 3-inch barrel, and people would ask me, "Why are you competing with a 3-inch barrel? There's no restriction or anything." And I was bringing home first place trophies and stuff with it. I said, "Well, I compete with it because what difference does it make if I'm really good with a full size pistol, but not any good with my everyday carry?"
Absolutely.
And I really don't, the little cheap trophies that I got on the wall really don't, they're just cheap trophies, and I'd rather be good with my gun than have all the trophies in the world.
100%.
And
I totally agree.
that's what matters.
Bull Rush with the 556. Thank you, super chat. He says the man, the myth, the legend, and DLD is okay too. Happy Independence Day, guys. Thank you, Bull
Happy
Rush.
Independence Day to you too.
So that's cool. So you switched to 9 millimeter. Just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on 40 Smith and Wesson?
So I have a couple of 40s. Um,
Okay.
uh, so I used to think that anything that I carried had to start with a 4.
Okay.
But 9 millimeter ammunition has gotten so much better uh,
Hmm.
as far as effectiveness, and I think the 40 Smith and Wesson. I think we were kind of. It's not a bad round by any means. I
Yeah.
bet my life on it by all means.
Hmm.
But you're not going to get a 40 Smith and Wesson the size of a Hellcat that carries 16 rounds
Very true.
in a magazine, one in the chamber. I used to think that I didn't need any more than 8.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I was chasing a madman down the road and I had 2 rounds left, I was really wishing I had a full 30 round magazine. You
You
know,
know, that you could not be tell I mean, that's you're telling the truth. And that so one thing that was the most inexpensive investment into my EDC, preparation and even psychological preparation was that you never know if you're gonna need ammo for your gun, for someone else's gun, for you never know when you may need to, engage whatever that may be, right? If I was sitting there in that situation in Sutherland Springs, and let's say I was the one who picked you up, which you landed in the right truck with the right guy at the right time, 100%. But I started carrying this a few years back, a what's called a magazine wallet in my trunk, and what it is it's about the size of a small briefcase, and it's Velcro. You open it, it was like under $10, maybe 12 bucks, and it's a magazine wallet that opens up, and it's got 4 PMags on one side and 8 Glock 33 round mags on one side. So whatever, ammo, it just gives you extra ammunition laying around, and I think that's super important for very, very cheap, you know,
yeah.
investment.
I just maybe a shout out to Palmetto State Armory here
Mhm.
because I just bought a dagger
Nice.
and they had the full size dagger on sale for I think it was when I bought it was like a Easter special or something.
Mhm.
They had and basically it is a Glock compatible.
Yep.
It's interchanged from a Glock, and it came with 10 extra high capacity 17 round magazines
Nice.
and the Palmetto State Armory bag, and it was milled out for an RMR, had the high sights and threaded barrel for a suppressor, and
Awesome.
I purchased it for $419.
That's a deal. That's it.
And I loaded up the magazines with 115 grain, 124 grain, and some 147 grain that I used my suppressor with, and
Mhm.
I shot it with all the different grains and stuff. All those magazines it functioned perfectly and stuff. And
Nice.
when I carry that in my car, I've got I actually bought a a regular Glock magazine to go with it. It comes with Magpul magazines,
Mhm.
but I got an OEM Glock magazine with it, so now I have 12 magazines.
Nice.
Carry it in my car, and every one of those magazines are full.
Yeah, that's an important thing. You never know when you may be called to task. And for us in the building community, we have a lot of gun builders that are viewers of the channel. We've been using the Dagger slides. So this is a Dagger slide. It's Independence Day special actually from last year, and you could throw it on any Glock frame, and they're excellent. I love it. The battle worn, I love battle worn stuff, but the battle worn American flag is a cool Independence Day thing, which actually you can still find them from time to time, guys. So check out PSA. And yeah, you can't get better deals than that. It's incredible. I don't know how they make money off this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I mounted a Holosun green dot on it with the solar panel on the top,
Nice.
and again, I ran it hard,
Yeah.
because I anything that I do carry that I bet my life on, I want to make sure that before I carry it, that it's going to do what I want it to do. And I didn't have any malfunctions
Nice.
with it. And for $419, like you say, it's hard to.
Oh yeah. I got my first complete dagger and it was 249. It was unfired, but it was, used. I got it for 249. It's the best. You got to love it. Well, guys, make sure that you show Steven some support and pick up his book. And you can do that either on Amazon or on GOA. And any before we wrap up, any parting thoughts or any dad advice or anything you want to leave the viewers with?
Again, make sure that you're right with God before you go and defend anybody, because um, we're all going to die someday, and if you're right with God, you'll live again.
Very true. Absolutely. And come out in PLA. Thank you, my friend. $20 super chat. So glad to see you back in action. Thank you. Catching the show amidst explosions and corn dog shrapnel. Great guest choice, too. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I thought, hey, Sabar and everyone else out there, I thought this was an excellent, excellent guest to have on for Independence Day, and Mr. Stephen Willeford, the Barefoot Defender. I so appreciate you coming on and spending this time with us. And yeah, anything else before we close out, and I'll go ahead and wrap it up.
God bless.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I thank you for what you did. You put your, personal needs and you were totally selfless in what you did. And I think that's awesome. And I think we can all take notes from that. And in closing, guys, I know it's been a long, long time since we've streamed. Actually, I said earlier it was like 46 days and 9 hours at that time, which is crazy, but it's been a long time. So it's great to be back. And we got a lineup of incredible guests coming up. On Thursday, I have Front Toward the ATF coming on. And then Saturday, the 8th, I have Clint from Classic Firearms coming on. And then on Tuesday, the 11th, I have Spectre Solutions, which is the night vision guy. You'll see. And I have a very special surprise guest for the 13th. So a lot of awesome episodes to come, as long as YouTube allows me to stay on the platform. And you could see, Stephen, we don't discuss anything crazy on here, right? We're just normal guys, and we certainly don't glorify violence. There's a difference between our firearms are shields. They're not swords, right? They're tools of protection and preservation of life, of yourself and your family and those that you care for and love. And in closing, remember our rules. Rule number 1 is to be kind, right? It's so important that we're kind in everything that we do. That brief moment of kindness could have a massive impact on someone's life. And that's, that power is at your fingertips. Rule number 2 is to live a life of care, contribution, give to others. When you bless others, you become blessed. And a hand that's open to give is open to receive. So be sure that you take care of others in your own family and your community. Rule number 3, because we know the only way for us to defeat evil is with good men skilled in violence, make sure that you're becoming as highly skilled in violence as you possibly can be, and be safe, be dangerous, and keep that thing on you. And with that, we're out of here, guys. Stephen, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. Stick around for a second, and every one of you guys, I will see you on Thursday. Happy Independence Day, guys. Thanks.